Hello, everyone. Can you all see me? Are we live?
I think so.
Good evening, everybody. How are you all doing?
Good.
Are we all good? Are we all excited? I'm really excited. I can't wait to delve deep into this really important topic that we've got this evening with some absolute stars of the cancer community. And I'm really looking forward to delving into your own stories and asking around. We'll wait a few minutes just for participants to arrive and get settled in. Get a cuppa if you're all going to be watching, because it's going to be a really interesting one. Nice and prepared for you all. Should have had some music.
Yeah.
Music on in the background. Lovely. Well, it's nice seeing the attendees number go up. We'll wait a few more minutes, everyone, and then we'll get started. Welcome, everybody who's joining. Hello, Rebecca. Lovely to see you here. That's a nice surprise. Ooh. And yes, please let us know where you're joining from as well, because we really want to see where you're from. And when I opened, I should have said good afternoon, good evening, and good morning for some of you, because we are global, which is really exciting. Fantastic. Okay, so I think we'll kick off. We'll just do some housekeeping in the beginning, so that might give some other people a bit of time to join. So good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining the Youth Cancer Europe mental health event, Chemo Brain, and Cancer and Mental Health. We're really, really grateful for you to be joining us here. We are really, it is kind of one of the first events that we've done in this method, and we want to make sure that we're doing this topic justice. So we wanted to make sure that we're having an open, inclusive, honest conversation with the cancer community, with an absolute stellar lineup of people, of diverse experience across Europe. And that is the beauty of Youth Cancer Europe, actually. I joined the YCE community about 3 years ago, and I always remember my first event, which was hosted in Lithuania. I was newly diagnosed, and I decided to take a leap of faith, and was encouraged to take this opportunity to go to Lithuania with only a couple of people. And it was the best decision I ever made, because I ended up making some lifelong friends. But more importantly, I ended up seeing a completely different outlook when it came to cancer. I was very familiar with the young people being impacted by cancer in the UK, and some similar cancer stories with people being treated in the NHS. But when you go further afield, I was listening to experiences and finding similarities, and mental health was definitely one of them, but finding differences in experience, and some of them shocking, some of them eye-opening. And I've been absolutely obsessed with Youth Cancer Europe ever since. So we're really excited to have you all here. The run of order will be that we're going to have we're going to listen to the stories of the participants here, and we're going to be asking a few questions. We're also going to have a few polls as well that we really like you to engage in, because we really want to hear from all of you. In terms of house rules, we have some house rules in the chat for you all. We're going to have a Q&A, so if you have any questions, please don't put it in the chat, please put it in the Q&A box, and you can vote on questions as well. So if you have a question that you want to ask, but you already see that somebody's asked it, click on a vote, and that will send it up to the top so we can see that. And I'll try my best to get everybody to reply to those questions. The panelists will be on mute, but we will be going around the table and asking people to participate as we go on. And I don't know if I've forgot any other house rules. I'll go and have a little look. What are the other ones? what are the other house rules? And yes, please note that the webinar will be recorded and the recording will be made available post-meeting as well. So with that, I am going to introduce myself. So my name is Brad, and I'll stop talking, I promise, because I'm going to try and keep my participation in this to a limit so we can hear everybody else. But my name is Brad. I'm from the UK, and I was diagnosed with chronic myeloid leukemia at age 19, and I hail from a village in the middle of nowhere. So being able to host a panel like this and meet people from all over Europe, all over the world is absolutely insane. For the 19-year-old Bradley going, that's insane, that's crazy. It was earth-shattering, as everybody on this call can understand, being diagnosed with cancer at a young age. And I come from a very, I'd say, sheltered background in the village in the middle of nowhere. My only medium to connecting with the outside world is the internet or the TV. So I really didn't understand what cancer meant to me, and I had to really learn on the job, really learn whilst on treatment and starting to understand my own feelings and emotions. I responded to treatment quite quickly, and with my new lease of life, I decided to take the leap and move to London, where I just took every opportunity available to me and really enjoyed everything, because I was aware that I'd just been through this huge ordeal on cancer treatment. Volunteering for charities like Click Sergeant, Teenage Cancer Trust, Macmillan, volunteering for the NHS, which gave me a really unique insight to treatment within the UK. And that's how I ended up joining Youth Cancer Europe. And then in January 2018, I faced a relapse of my leukemia. So I had a bone marrow transplant, and I've just passed my 3-year anniversary, which is really exciting, really amazing. And I'm also the founder of a new digital charity called Alike. And next week, a week today, we are going to be launching a new peer support platform, an iOS and Android peer support platform in partnership with Girl vs. Cancer, which is really exciting. So there's my introduction. Next, we're going to go to Andrea. If you could please tell us your name and a little bit of your story.
Right, so I am Andrea. I am 28 years old, sadly, I think. And I was diagnosed 13 years ago when I was 15 with a Ewing sarcoma in the tibia, in my leg. It was, as I say, in the prehistoric ages of social media and all of these things. So I've really seen the evolution of all the social networks and how things have been working and how things have been proven really useful. But in terms of my story, I got the diagnosis and I finished the treatment in 2008. But ever since, I've had over 10 surgeries because I've been breaking lots of pieces of metal and things that shouldn't have been broken. So I'm quite like of a mystery for the doctors. But yeah, I met the Youth Cancer Europe back in 2014 when I met Katie in Madrid in an international young adults and adolescents kind of event. And she asked me if I wanted to join, and I've been collaborating with them ever since. And I also I am happily helping Brad with Alike. And yeah, I am currently based in Manchester, UK, but I am in Spain at the moment due to some doctor's appointments, as you know, that the cancer life never stops. And yeah, I'm really, really happy to be here, and I'm really looking forward to hear all of your stories.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Andrea. It's lovely to have you here. We're coming to you next, Emmy.
Hi everyone, my name is Emmy. I'm 27 years old. I'm in Romania and I've been diagnosed 11 years ago, actually, with testicular cancer, and I've finished treatment around 2012. Since then, actually in the hospital, I came in contact with an NGO that helps children with cancer in Romania called the Little People Association. And that's how my life intertwined with the NGO world. And I've started working with Little People in 2014. And after that, I've been involved in YC's inception as well, because YC started with a small team in Romania, and then we branched off all over Europe. And currently, I'm still working with Little People and YC, and yeah, I'm enjoying life, and I'm really, really keen on fertility and also on the mental health in particularly in regards to relationships and sexual activity and so on. So,
Thank you very much,
happy
Emmy.
to be here.
Thank you so much, Emmy. And I know you're a massive advocate for those topics, so I'm really looking forward to delving into them later on in the event. So we'll jump over to you next, Erik.
Yes, thank you. So I'm Erik from Sweden. I was diagnosed when I was 15. I'm 33 now. Actually, last week I turned 33. I went on treatment for 2 years. It was pretty rough. I ended up with an acute pancreatitis, and I have several late complications, diabetes and stuff. But at the end of the day, to be honest, it's the fatigue and the depression that is the worst. For me, it affects my diabetes directly because you're too depressed to exercise. So I actually got involved by accident. Got invited by the Swedish foundation to Lithuania, same as Bradley. And I mean, with all the mental health issues I've had and the low quality of the healthcare provided, it's really that's pretty much the reason why I want to participate in events like this, and I'm very happy to have been invited to it as well.
Thank you so much, Erik. And I know that you have a very warts and all approach to mental health, that you don't shy away from the stigma. And I think that's really, really important. So again, to Emma, really looking forward to getting into that and us having a very open and honest conversation about mental health. So next up is Lauren.
Hello, I'm Lauren, and I am the founder of Girl vs. Cancer and 1/3 of the podcast You Mean a Big C here in the UK. I was diagnosed with breast cancer at the ripe old age of 31, now nearly 36, it's quite scary. But yeah, I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and I, first of all, I couldn't believe I was diagnosed, considering I call my bosom a goodwill gesture. So I thought if I could get breast cancer, then anybody could, but I couldn't find young people. I knew that there was teenage cancer, but I really struggled to find young people in their 30s who aren't in that bracket. Most of the materials and support groups were made for women in their 50s and upwards, people who already had children, people who had their career sorted out, were married, had houses, and I was just fledgling in my life, trying to get things together. So I started talking about my experience because I needed to find other women who like to swear, wear lipstick, have a prosecco as well. And so Girl vs. Cancer was born, and I'm, I came to YCE again via Bradley. Bradley and I met through our darling friend Jay, actually, who I think is tuned into this tonight. And Bradley told me about the great work that YCE does. It's so important because, as young people with cancer, and it will be different in all different parts of Europe, there's different needs. As Emmy said, there's things that will trouble relationships. I haven't had kids yet, so there's no point handing me a leaflet that tells me how to tell my children. So I'm really excited to talk to you guys a little bit more about all of the different aspects of mental health that cancer covers, because it covers quite a lot of them. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for joining. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to the contribution that you can bring to this conversation as well, because I know you're really committed to opening up that conversation and making sure that we don't just say well-intended placations, that we say real things, right? And that's what this is all about. So last but by no means least is the iconic Leanne Pero.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Hi, everybody. So my name's Leanne Pero. My story is quite similar to Lauren, really. I was diagnosed, well, I'm 35 now, coming up to 36. But I was diagnosed with breast cancer at 30 years old. It was a huge, huge shock to me. I was diagnosed 6 months after my mum was diagnosed with breast cancer for the second time. So it was a massive shock to me and my family. I think one of the things that was the biggest shock was that I didn't find much representation from my community of other young girls like me going through breast cancer. And as I went further and further down my cancer journey, which included, 8 rounds of chemo, because of my age and my family history with breast cancer, I ended up losing both of my breasts as well. I didn't get the same options as other people for fertility drugs and, that sort of thing. And when I was coming to the end of my treatment, which, for many people don't have that, privilege of actually coming to the end of their treatment successfully, I noticed that my mental health took a massive battering. So I began talking about my experiences online. And as I started to do that, loads of other women from the Black and Asian community reached out to me, just saying how important it was to hear somebody that they could relate to, because there wasn't much representation, particularly in the UK, of many people from our communities with telling their cancer stories. And as I started my work, with cancer awareness within my community, these stories just kept on echoing and echoing. So for me, as I came out of my cancer journey, I set up a project called Black Women Rising, which we have a support group. We also have a podcast. We also have a magazine. I'm going to plug that in here now. We also have a magazine, and we also do a lot of campaigning around the inequalities that some people from the BAME communities, the Black and Asian community, face on a day-to-day basis. It's been very prevalent, particularly in the last 12 months. Our work has been very, very important on the ground. And, I'm just happy to be here. I think apart from those inequalities, I would say to everybody, I'm here for the same reasons in regards to cancer and mental health, particularly at this point in time, like the aftermath of people going through cancer. So I'm passionate about all the subjects that everybody here has spoken about. So yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Leanne. And yeah, whilst we all do have mental health and we all have to find ways of coping with mental health, there's definitely a disparity of experience. And again, it's about exposing that, right? And finding ways to combat that. So thank you so much for your work. And as well, I just want to say thank you to you all. I know I'll say thank you at the end, but thank you so much for sharing, because it means a lot talking about this topic, and it's not easy for some people. So thank you all for sharing your stories. And it's an innermost kind of it's you and your personality that you're sharing here and your experience, and we don't take that for granted. So thank you very much for being willing to share in such a public forum. So I am coming straight to you, Andrea, and diving straight in of something that we've definitely spoken about before, and I think it's really important to speak about this first. I know cancer has been, sadly, a large part of your life for a long time. 2007, you were diagnosed, and I know how you've struggled with the long-term effects. So what I wanted to ask you is, how do you think the long-term effects of cancer and living with the long-term effects for so long has impacted your mental health, and what coping mechanisms do you have, and what coping mechanisms would you advise or suggest?
Okay. That's a good question. Good question. So first of all, the thing is, when I was diagnosed, there was no social media, right? Things like WhatsApp, it seems that they've been in our lives forever. It was only launched in 2009 when I was already finished my treatment. So back in the day, it was like the MSN Messenger kind of thing. And I was a teenager. I was really young, and I spent like quite a lot of time on my own. So thankfully, the thing that has always come with me is art. I've been painting and doodling and doing sketches since I have memory. And over all of these years, I have managed to gather 18 black notebooks that I have over there on a shelf with all of the sketches that I usually call them like waiting room sketches. Because sometimes it's just like a 1 minute sketch, 2 minute sketches that I just do on all of those endless hours of waiting rooms that we have to suffer. Because even though I finished my treatment, and thankfully I've been cancer free ever since, I've had like so many surgeries and so many going back and forth to where my parents live, to Madrid, which is the city that I was treated, and I was having the surgeries. So long journeys, long hospital stays. And yeah, for me, before social media and before having like the opportunity and the look to get to know people like all of you, it was quite a lonely world because it was just your small group of friends. And obviously for me in the hospital, it was just the 5 that were diagnosed, the 5 teenagers that were diagnosed like me, and that was the world. Like there was no option to get to know anyone else from outside your little hospital. Well, little. But yeah, it was like the crew, the bone cancer crew, and that was it. So for me, it's been doing art and eventually I started posting things online and stuff. But for me, really, it's been just the notebooks and being able to explore, not by writing, but just by doodling and helping my brain get away with things in that way, if that makes sense.
Definitely. And so you had like your own coping mechanisms, but how was the support from your hospital in terms of your mental health and with your experience? And what is it like in Spain, if you can shed some light on that as well?
So thankfully, things have changed a lot in Spain. Back in the day, I was treated, thankfully, in a children's hospital because I was in that break of age where doctors usually like doubt where to send you. But I was lucky enough to have been sent to a children's hospital. But the bad thing is, back then, um, like the Ministry of Health in Spain didn't have the figure of the psycho-oncologist approved for children and teenagers. It was for adults with cancer, but not for teenagers and children. So the chief of oncology in the hospital, who is a great man, he was convinced it was something really necessary. So he kept this psycho-oncologist through like fellowships and these kind of call them awards, and she was able to work with us and stay with us just because this guy thought it was important for teenagers to have someone to talk to, which I think it's really important. But yeah, thankfully ever since the figure has been approved, and now there's usually like at least one psycho-oncologist per like unit, call it like that. So yeah, things have improved for the better, which I'm really thankful for.
Well, that's great to hear. So we actually have a poll for everybody, and I would love to hear from the other participants on that what was your experience with professional mental health support during and after diagnosis as well. So if everybody can type this in. But on that, Erik, I know you've been very open about like mental health support during treatment, and it'd be great to listen to your experience on that.
So yeah, I mean, I did get some sort of assistance during the treatment, but I mean, it was also chaotic at that point. I just, I was struggling to stay alive, basically. I mean, I spent 250 days in the hospital. It was mostly afterwards where, things broke down. I would say that, I tried to find psychologists who could relate, uh, to what had happened, because the issue was that everyone said that, yeah, but you're alive, so that's awesome. And I mean, before I got sick, I I was very athletic. I was very fit. I was exercising and I was playing soccer. Suddenly I gain, 30 kilograms. I have no muscles. I have nothing like that. And just to say that, yeah, you're alive, it's not all that helpful, um, really. And the thing is that eventually, like, I went through several psychologists, and it, when that's the message that you receive so often, I couldn't keep doing it. So, I didn't deal with the issues, and I have had many, recurring depressions, and it's always begun with a fatigue, an episode of fatigue that's led to a depression, and then it just keeps spinning out of control. And this is the issue: when it takes too long to get help, you will eventually succumb to the basic nature, and employ defense mechanisms like suppression. And you don't want to talk about it because you've already you've already sold it yourself, but not in a good way. It's like a surgeon stitching a wound on the outer layer of the skin, and not suturing inside it. So the wound, it heals from the outside in, and that's very dangerous.
Lauren, I'm going to come to you on that if you don't mind, because I always remember you saying something to me about that, and I don't really want to take the quote off you, but about the feeling that when you normally have another ailment, on a physical ailment, like you break a muscle, or you break a leg, or break a bone, like you pull a muscle, you feel that twinge every now and then. But with cancer, it's something completely different. Could you explain that a little bit more? Because there's a lot of similarity in that.
Yeah, I think, just again to echo what Erik said, and I think all of us here who have experienced cancer will understand that when you're going through the process of a cancer treatment, you're very much in survival mode. And actually, that's the point that you tend to be offered psychological support. But we all know, coming out the other side of it, that's the bit you need the help, because you're processing what's just happened. And, with a cancer diagnosis, it leaves a scar. It's part of the tapestry of who you are. It morphs who you are. There's so much to unpack and process, things that will trigger in your everyday life, stuff you've been carrying with you anyway, relationships, health anxieties, work, anything. It touches everything. So when you have a physical ailment, if you sprain an ankle or whatever, you'll be walking down the street and you'll feel it go sometimes, but you know what that is. You're like, that's from the time I had a sprain. When it's emotional, a lot of the time you don't realize that the trauma you're feeling, the depression, the bout of anxiety, the uncontrollable sobbing for no reason, has been triggered by this trauma, because you're carrying so much around with you. And I do think there is a massive, there is this massive deficit in the post-cancer support. Because I know I've recently just finished my therapy this week, which I called to an end, but I started it in November 2019. That's a year after my active treatment ended, and I was in complete emotional burnout. I had the very real privilege of being able to find the money to go and do that privately, but that opportunity for that care had disappeared because I'd used up all my sessions in my hospital. And yeah, I think, it's not to be underestimated, the deep-rooted impact emotionally and mental health-wise that the cancer experience has. And actually, to be able to work through that in a really safe environment is key to healing. Just as well as you would heal after a surgery, you're told to take time and, exercise and flex the muscle slowly so you don't get all stiff. I think it's the same with your feelings. I think you need to be able to slowly pick away at the experience you've gone through and the trauma you've had to start to heal from it. And you need support to be able to do that.
Emmy, do you want to come in on that? Because I know we've spoken about this before, and I know you're really passionate about mental health when it comes to fertility. You're a huge advocate for that, and also relationships as well. So do you want to follow on from that?
Well, as Lauren said, it takes time to just really take in everything that's happened during your cancer treatment. And just like Erik said, you push it down most of the time, and you really need the help to really process it and go over it. For me personally, it's been quite different, because I did push it down, but for me the side effects weren't as severe as some other cancer survivors doing the treatment, and also the late effects were not as severe. But I really was impacted on my fertility. I'm infertile. I'm not able to have kids, and that has changed my mentality when it came to approaching dating and going into a fresh relationship. I was asking myself the question, do I really need to speak about my cancer experience on the first date, or do I need to postpone it until later on? Well, I do have scars from my surgeries. When will this question pop up? And it's quite a toll, because you don't really know how to pick your moments, because you don't really know how the other person will react. And in time, I've learned to actually accept myself exactly as I am, because that's one of the most important things you can do. And I've been very blessed to be surrounded by a lot of cancer survivors that also gave me advice, not only from Youth Cancer Europe, but also from the Romanian survivorship community, Temerari. And honestly, it's a struggle, and you need to find your own little road and way through different people and different mentalities, because you never know what you're gonna get in the dating world, basically.
Definitely, and I know fertility is a whole different kettle of fish, but I think they go hand in hand a lot. And I know the discrepancy between the fertility and the mental health conversation around that as well. And there's so many differences in experiences, especially when people are saying, I remember for me, when I was having my bone marrow transplant, thankfully, my healthcare professionals were really transparent on the fertility issues and were very proactive in making sure that I did freeze sperm. But hearing from other people's experiences, that when the GP, like, I'm going to be brutally honest, when the GP have misserved somebody, when someone has gone so long with being undiagnosed, it's this, it's that, it's something else. Are you a student? Are you out drinking? No, it's actually ended up being leukemia, and they have to go straight into treatment. The healthcare service has failed them, not just for their physical health at that point and their mental well-being at that point. They've failed their future. And something so fundamental as fertility and being able to have your own children, and it's such a failing. So I think what I would like to ask, actually, and we'll probably have another poll here, is around being sexually active and relationships. And I think we've got a poll for everybody. It's coming up here. There we are. And if anybody in the group as well wants to delve a little bit more, Leanne, it might be great to hear from you in terms of relationships and cancer, not just sexual relationships as well, but any form of relationships. Like, how has cancer and mental health impacted your ability with other people? Because for me, I definitely feel meeting my boyfriend, it was a really weird situation, having to explain that, oh no, I'm a cancer survivor, but I'm on treatment, I'm this, I'm that, without fulfilling the bias of that. So it's great to hear from you on this, if that's all right.
Well, it's funny because I was single at the time I was diagnosed, and I was dating somebody. And then when I told him that I had cancer, he basically disappeared, not just like, went ghost, but he disappeared slowly, that the messages stopped coming in and whatever. But funnily enough, I did meet somebody amazing whilst I was going through chemo. It didn't work out in the end, but it was a great relationship, and it taught me so much. I think post cancer, that was the part, especially when I could see in the messages a lot of people talking about this kind of thing where, all your treatment stopped and all the doctors and nurses and everybody goes away, and you're kind of left in this zone where everybody's like, well, you've got your life back, get on with it, you should be happy, and you're not happy because you've been left with this, as Lauren quite rightly put it, it's this trauma, but it's this residue left behind after the disease. And I found that really difficult, finding my new normal, finding who I was again. With something like breast cancer, I always say it just robs you of all the things, that society, say makes you a woman. So for me, I lost both my breasts. Don't get me wrong, they were reconstructed to a certain degree, but I don't have any feeling in my breast. I have no breast tissue. I have no nipples. I have nothing. So for me, going into new relationships and dating new people, I found that conversation really difficult to have. I have found the conversation about the fact that, I didn't freeze my eggs, because that wasn't something that was properly explained to me. I found that conversation really difficult to have, because for a couple of months after probably up until a year, my periods, my monthly cycle never came back. So they said to me, you know, you might have gone into an early menopause. So I found these conversations really, really difficult to have. That on top of the 2 stone, you know, weight gain, having no hair and eyebrows taking ages to come back, and wearing wigs. And I felt like I had to really strip myself back, to the point I made the decision not to date, because I then decided that I had to do a bit more of soul searching in terms of myself, get used to my new normal. But it has been really difficult. And, you know, I'm coming up to 4 or 5 years on now. And the conversations are still difficult. You know, it's very difficult trying to explain to somebody. And it's true what Emmy said. Where do you have that conversation? On the first date, or do you wait? It's so difficult. But I know that so many others can relate.
And that's why we want to have these conversations, because there's so many areas that we can relate on. Andrea, I'm going to come to you on this, and I hope you don't mind me grilling you on this. But I know at the moment you're personally going through like your own like transition. You have to consider something, and I don't know to shed a little bit more light on that. But you have been in a relationship for a long time, and he is a gem. It'd be great. It would be great to understand what the what you're going through affect your relationship, because your relationship is really strong. But like that relationship built on, and how, and I know we're not giving relationship advice, but how does that affect your mental health and your relationship, and your mental health affect your relationship, if you don't mind me asking?
No, first of all, I would like to say, in regards of the fertility, being a woman affected me for the worst, because I wasn't even given the chance to freeze my eggs back in the day. And not only that, because I wasn't even asked, I wasn't even informed, and then my period never came back. So at some point, the endocrinologist was like, right, we need to put you on some hormones, blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, fine, fair enough. And then literally on my last appointment, before going to a gynecologist when I was turning 18, he went through all of my blood tests, he went through all of that, and he was like, right, I'm going to send you to the gynecologist, you're all enough now, blah, 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 blah. Okay, off you go. And then when I was leaving the appointment and I was reaching the lift, the nurse came running, and she was like, right, the doctor wants to say something like last minute to you, can you please come back to the appointment? And I came back to the room, and he said, oh, by the way, you're not going to be able to have kids. Literally like that. And I was just like, hey, you know, I was 18, I was a baby, and that wasn't even crossing my mind. So I was just like, okay, fine, whatever. But then now, it's something that you think about also. Like, apparently now everyone's getting pregnant. Like, what's going on? And I'm seeing you know, people, and I'm like, right, that's something that it will have to be planned, because I'm not going to be able to have kids on like with my own eggs, but apparently my uterus is functional, fine, okay. But yeah, I was induced into the early menopause like all of you, but I was 15, 16, and yeah, all the hair problems, all the hot flashes if I don't take the hormones. I start getting hot flashes, which is really funny because my mom's also going through the same thing. So it's both of us like, what's so hot in here? And my dad would be like freezing. It's like nothing. But yeah, that's something really important. And in regards of the relationship, first of all, I'm incredibly lucky. That's what I want to say. He's an absolute gem. And when I met him, under the weirdest of the circumstances, because he was a worldwide pride in Madrid, and he was a friend of a friend, yeah, for me, it's something that is kind of unavoidable. And the first date or whatever, because I've been using a crutch for all of these years, so it's like, what happened to you? And then usually goes to like, oh, you're so tall, you've injured yourself playing basketball, or you fell down or something. And then depending on my mood, on how many or long explanations I want to do, then it'll be like, yeah, sure, basketball, yeah, absolutely, yes. Or then I would like share the story. And I remember I did share the story with him, and he was like pretty shocked. But ever since, it's just been a wild ride, but it's been like a lovely ride, and I wouldn't change it for the world. And at the moment, I'm going through some hard stuff and some hard decisions in regards of the leg and on the situation. And yeah, he's been nothing but supportive. It's literally like the best thing that could have happened to me. I've been always used to deal with things alone, and it's taking quite a bit of time for me to let myself lean on someone, if that makes sense, because if you're used to go on your own and deal with things and surgeries and you're in like power mode, let's go, let's do this, having someone next to you, it's kind of, why? What are you doing here? Are you really going to stay? Are you, but eventually, I am incredibly happy of having him, because he's really supportive. He takes lots of interest in learning about things. He asks me the most random questions, and he is really interested in meeting all my friends and all of this community, which I really appreciate, because I've met people and I've been in other relationships where they didn't want to have anything to do with it, or they literally, I was left by a guy because he couldn't handle the leg, and I said, well, I'm not going to leave the leg at home when I meet you. Like, this comes with me, it's on the back. If you want me, this is coming, and we eventually like part ways. But yeah, I think when you find someone, it's really a good thing. And yeah, I guess, if that answers your question.
It does. It really, really does. And thank you so much for sharing. We actually have another poll on relationships after treatment as well. So that's just going to be shared for everyone. Whilst this poll is being answered, I'm coming to you next, Erik. And we actually have a question pre-submitted from somebody. And I know you've spoken about mental health very openly. So I'm just going to fulfill mine in, actually. There we go. And I'm going to ask you a question. So I'm going to read out this great question from Patricia. So thank you very much for submitting this, Patricia. So she has asked, or they have asked, I've had chemo for non-Hodgkin's lymphoma about 7 years ago. In the years after my treatment, starting during my chemo, I had this fog in my head. I couldn't remember things, thinking clearly as if all other connections were foggy. But back then, they couldn't give me an explanation about what was actually going on in my head. I was wondering if there is more knowledge about what changes in Chemo Brain and what creates this fog. And now the fog is gone, I still experience a lot of trouble with things like light and sound. I live with chronic problems, and I have to use sunglasses and earplugs. But I was wondering how other experiences in daily life, I was wondering about other experiences and other people's experiences in daily life, and if there's more tips to share. So my question to you, Erik, is do you relate with that experience? Do you have any tips to share? And what has been your experience with long-term mental health effects, and has it affected you physically?
Yeah, I have experienced the same or the concept of a fog. I would say it hasn't affected me so much in the sensory department with being sensitive to noise or light and things like that. To me, it's mostly been memory, to be honest, and just this fatigue that it's just I'm tired and I shouldn't be tired. It's a bad way of being tired. And you're just completely exhausted. I have the question here as well. I'm looking at it because of my bad memory. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Take your time. No rush.
Yeah. And so as for the cause or the science, it's not something that I've looked at very much. I probably should, but the past few years I've had a depression that's made it very difficult to actually look into things like this, because it would require reading studies and things. what I can say is that, I mean, sorry.
There's no
I
rush.
mean,
Take time.
yeah, I mean, the thing is, I haven't actually solved my problem, so it's difficult. I'm not sure exactly what to say. All I can say is that you'd need to find something that, like, makes you happy. Keep looking for it and keep finding solutions, and it might take time. I think it's great if you can meet others with the same issues, because you're not alone. I can guarantee you that you're not alone. Um, it's something that pretty much everyone was talking about. I felt in Lithuania, then we had varying degrees of issues with it. But yeah, keep going at it. Is I mean, it's pretty much the advice I can give. Me personally, I've been able to travel lately, and I have been finding new hobbies. I keep finding new hobbies all the time, and I'm very much into photography, and this has been an outlet for me to deal with it, because it stimulates your mind and helps with the memory and things like that. But yeah, I'm sorry, I still haven't found it. Yeah, I still have the issues.
And I think that is probably the best tip, because there's power in saying, I don't have the solution, because it would be wrong if you were telling people stuff that you're not doing yourself, but also that there's, like, I don't want to say there's no shame, because that's negative, is that shame shouldn't even come into it. There's power in saying, well, I don't have the solution, I'm still going through this. And thank you so much for sharing that, because that's real, right? Like, you are, and so many of us are dealing with things still. And thank you so much for saying that. Lauren, I know you feel really strongly about this.
Yeah, I think it's one of the lesser spoken about things, like, and it really, the anxiety and social anxiety that it causes me, like, considering that I speak in public forums, on live television, on radio a lot, the amount of times I sit and search for words, simple words that just don't come to me anymore, not being able to put names to faces, my ability to retain information he's completely changed since cancer, and I know that's the result of the treatment I was on, and I know it's also as a result of the menopause drugs I'm on, because it makes you foggy. But it's, for me, I don't think it's to be underestimated, the impact that has on your mental health, because it literally feels like a part of you is just switched off. And I like to think of myself as a very articulate young lady, and I feel like that this recovery process has done is it's taken little bits from me. I pride myself on being able to walk into a room and go, I met you like 6 years ago at this, and this. I love humans, I love connection. And I think what it's doing is then I almost feel like I've got to make excuses, or, tell people I'm really sorry, I've got, like, I think it's chemo brain still. But I don't think anyone really talks about this bit. I really don't. And it has impacted me and continues to. And it really frustrates me more than most things. Physical things I can handle. Menopause, dry vagina, can handle that. There's a cream for that. What do you do about this? What do you do about this? And someone said to me before about when you go through chemo, obviously I know not everyone does, but you will be put through a lot of treatments. But when you go through chemo, it literally kills off your fast dividing cells. You will have lost brain cells. You have literally lost a part of you. And I think that's really helped me to understand my brain, and the fact that I do find certain situations really overwhelming that I never used to before, because my brain takes a minute to adjust. If I walk into a room that's a bit overcrowded, before I just walk in like, I've arrived, hello. Before, now I'm like, oh my God, this is a bit much. It takes me time. I think it's my stimulants are just a bit overwhelmed. And I just wanted to share that, because I feel like it doesn't have to be really extreme in your experience of those symptoms, but I feel like I'm not alone in the fact that there's subtleties in it that live with you every day. And when you find they happen, when you find that you're trying to remember the word for chips and you can't say chips, part of your brain goes, that was cancer. And then that makes you feel quite emotional or anxious or sad. And I just wanted to share that.
Definitely. Thank you so much for sharing. I think that's actually, I really relate with that, because I used to work in broadcast, and it wasn't really after my first diagnosis, because I was put on a targeted therapy. So I'm lucky to say that I didn't lose my hair. I went through treatment looking like the picture of health, which comes with its own stigmas. But after I had my bone marrow transplant, I feel that the healthcare professionals went through the side effects like a tick box. Like, oh, I've said this to you, haven't I? Done. Without a consideration of, you may struggle with this. Do you understand what that will mean? Ruined my broadcasting career, because I have so many things that I want to say in my head and so many things that I want to be able to say. It doesn't come out of here. And I've come up with this really eloquent sentence or something within 5 minutes. Can't do live TV. Can't do it. Nope. Because it's just the fog from chemo. And I really wish somebody had said that, and really, really wish somebody had told me about that long-term effect. And it's because it's not scientifically proven. It's still, like, everyone on this call is nodding their head. And I'm sure people in the chat are going, well, yeah, I've experienced that. So there needs to be some research done into it, because it is a significant problem. We do have a poll as well coming up on long-term effects, the long-term effects and that disclosure of them as well. So if everybody wants to answer in here. We'll let the answers come in on that, and the long-term effects. And I just want to say, whilst we're waiting for that, we've got one question in the Q&A. We're going to come to them at the end after we've all chatted, because there's still a few topics that I want to cover. But please, everybody watching, if there's something that you relate to and you want to ask a question, it might just be a statement and we can discuss it. Please put some Q&As in the Q&A box, please. It would be great to get some of them from you. So next, I'm coming back to you, Lauren. And talking about like you and I suppose your work, and thank you for being really eloquent talking about your story, but something that I'm really interested to, because we've spoken about a little bit, is that you do a lot of work of activism within the cancer community, and you went through this awful ordeal of cancer. When did that switch happen for you? Like, when did you, everything, you Girl versus Cancer is not you, but you are Girl versus Cancer. When did that switch happen for you? And when did you go, this is what I'm going to do? Because what you've created is incredible, and you are really shifting the dialogue on how people talk about cancer. So it'd be great to hear that.
Do you know what? It was kind of instant. And I think also as well, it's like Girl versus Cancer wasn't, I never knew it would become what it has. For me, it was just this whole defiance of being put into a room and, you know, been told you've got cancer and handed leaflets of really elderly people on it, and being like, where's my people? Where's the young people? Only been able to find children, and I'm not a child. I know, like a 15-year-old boy, but I'm not. And it's that whole feeling lost, and also that kind of the idea that people knew what I was going through. I was made to feel like I've got cancer. It was the head tilts. It was this is going to happen. That's going to happen. This is, you know, there's a picture painted of cancer patients in media, in TV, in films, in stories we hear from other people. That didn't align with who I felt as a person. And so I wanted to be able to talk about my experience on my terms and talk about cancer in my tone of voice and my dialogue. And in doing that, what happened was, it turns out a lot of people needed that too, because they felt exactly the same as I did. And they wanted to talk about their experience in a really real way and not have words put into their mouth. And I think all that kind of Girl versus Cancer and as a result the podcast has done is it's taken the kind of the perception and the story and the narrative of a cancer patient out of the charity's hands, out of the media's hands, and put them back into the hands of the cancer patients themselves. Every single thing Girl versus Cancer stands for, whether it's part of my community or work I do individually, all comes from a need to want to better the cancer experience for any future Laurens, Leanne's, Bradley's, Eric's, Andrea's, Emmy's, all of us in this world, that because of the lived experiences we've had. So knowing that, you know, I went into a room and I was told that my eggs would be frozen, but then someone else wasn't. No one told me that cancer costs on average in the UK about £580 to even have it. But yeah, I wasn't getting any sick pay. I was getting statutory, which is, you can wipe your bum with that amount. Like, there's so many facets to the cancer experience no one discusses other than you lose your hair. That's all you get told. And I just knew, I was like, there's so much I didn't know about cancer. So let me tell you about cancer from our perspective. And I felt also really strongly that as a cis heterosexual white woman in the city of London, if I couldn't find girls like me, what hope has the BAME community got of finding people like them? What hope has the like trans community got? You know, there's so much falling through the cracks that happens. And I just feel like, yeah, there's the general things we all need help with, but for me, it's all about fighting for equal treatment options. It's about really bringing to the forefront the actual needs of quality of life for everyone going through cancer. And it's just what gets me out, what makes me, you can hear it when I talk, it puts fire in my belly, because these are the things that get missed. These are the things that are seen, deemed as vain and additional. And it's not. We are not a conveyor belt. You get cancer, you're put in a conveyor belt, you go through all these bits, they put these parts in, fix them. If you're lucky at the end, they start the engine and you carry on. But you're a person, and it's about the human. And humans are multifaceted without cancer. So we need to be treated as the multifaceted humans that we are. And that's my opinion. That's what I do.
Absolutely. I mean, poetry, something that I'm very, very, very passionate about. My work with the NHS is, and I don't want to be going into any technicals here, but it's this notion of patient-centered care that we really live, and I think across Europe, of a one size fits all. And that is wrong for healthcare, because health is so important that it needs to be tailored to who you are and what you are and your needs. And I think we're going through a bit of a revolution when it comes to healthcare across Europe and across the world, and not demanding any less than what we are entitled to, and that is health. So we're part of a new dawn, everyone, and we're going to be the ones to fight for that. Emmy, you have been a crucial member of the YC community, and in that, we'll come to community and community representation in a moment. But I wanted to ask you why do you think YC is special, first of all, and why do you think it's important to have your community, and why do you believe in the power of community?
Well, first of all, for me, it's just like Erik said, you need someone to relate to. That's one of the most important thing. And as Lauren said, you need to find out that you're not alone in this battle. There's people going through the same things as you are. And for me, it has done much more than that, because it gave me a place to spread my wings, a place to just engage with a wonderful community, and also going into it as a professional. I've also managed to get around and try and do a lot of good. But yeah, definitely community is one of the most important things, because besides family, they're the people that are there for you. You can speak openly about anything. For example, me and Andrea met during an event in Bucharest for the first time. We didn't talk much then, but a couple of years later, during the music festival, we got in touch again through Youth Cancer Europe, and we just hit it off basically, and now we're very good friends. So it just, something clicks, and you get a lot of positive feedback coming from people, and it's something that really helps you move along with life and gives you a certain feeling of assurance that everything's going to be fine, but you just have to just keep rowing, basically.
Absolutely. And we do have a specific poll, because whilst I do believe, and trying to frame this in a positive way, right, I'm going to level with you all, that community is important, right? But that sometimes, and I've experienced this, and I don't know if anybody else has experienced this on this call, especially as I'm wanting to be more active in the cancer community, because I do have my own opinions, and I'm trying to, very much like some people on this call, voice them and make sure that they're heard. But I've actually received, and I'm really big on the power of community, strength in numbers coming together, but I've definitely received my fair share of negative messages from people whom I consider friends in the community. Not friends in the community, but other members of the cancer community where you'd think that would share a connection and would want to connect and kind of come together, when there seems to be this need to drive people apart and kind of reduce expression of individualities. And I do actually have a poll for everybody, because I think it's something really important that I want to raise in this, in an open forum, that there is a positive thing of coming together and sharing stories and being open. But I've had experiences of people just not being very nice when I've done nothing wrong, or all I'm doing is speaking my truth. And I would love to hear from anybody else in the chat or panelists of like a more negative experience, because I think we need to be open about this, because I understand when people are hurt people, right? And cancer hurts people. But what I'm sick and tired of is people misdirecting that. What their anger and frustration should be is the NHS failing them, is their doctors not telling them, is the government for not funding, right? It shouldn't be at our own community. So what I would like to ask in the poll, and anybody else who's willing to share, are meetings like this important for addressing issues within the community, and do we need to be more open? Andrea, I know you've spoken about this before. You've had some.
Yeah, I mean, I am by no means an influencer, and I don't have a huge following, but I've been, as I've mentioned before, I've been dealing with this for a long time, and I've been always very open and very honest on what was going on in my life, because sadly, going to the hospitals and going to the doctors has always been like on my day-to-day kind of activities. So one day I would be in uni, and the day after I would be in the hospital, and then the day after I would be maybe having a photo shoot or something. So it got to a point where, particularly after the surgery, I do remember posting a selfie on Instagram. It was not even a selfie. I think my sister took a picture of my face after the surgery, and I was just like, I am miserable, I'm bored. Can you please tell me about movies or something? And I did get a really nasty message from another cancer patient, which is like, I think that surprises me the most, saying that I was using the fact that I've had cancer and I was going through surgeries to make myself like more popular, and trying to like, I guess, gain followers or something. And I did make a very public statement on Facebook that he saw, saying that I'm not asking for permission, I'm not apologizing for who I am and the way I behave. And at the end of the day, I wasn't asked if I wanted to have cancer, and the way I was dealing with it, it was my own business and only mine. And if I wanted to post pictures and deal with this that way, if people doesn't want to look at it, they can just go. I'm not going to change, and I'm not going to stop posting pictures and dealing with the things I'm dealing with on a more or less public way. That's my own idea. But I'm not going to stop doing it for the opinions of others. But I do think it's quite sad that people get, what's the word? Get like happiness, maybe not the word, but they get like, yeah, they feel good tearing people apart. That's my main point, you know. And they feel better when they drag people through the mud and make people feel like shit. And this guy did apologize in the end, and I've never heard from him again. But I think it's something that obviously you guys, Lauren, Leanne and Bradley, that you have like such a huge following, you must be dealing in such a larger scale. And this one was just maybe like anecdotic for you guys. But for me, it was quite interesting seeing this guy was attacking me just, you know, a selfie, because it wasn't even a picture of my leg. And I mean, I've been posting pictures of the legs, the scars. I have absolutely no problem doing that. And I've never, well, I've been seen and I've been like looked at on the street, but that's another point. But, you know, it wasn't someone that I have met before, and it had never happened to me from another cancer patient. And I think that's what shocked me the most. So yeah.
Definitely. And it's sad. And I suppose whilst you should never accept somebody saying that to you because you're a right to defend yourself, and we should always respect people. I think how we combat it is, and I really don't want to kind of go the way of Michelle Obama here, but like when they go low, we go high. But also I think understanding someone and their experience. And I think that's the way to combat it, is that when somebody is being so hurtful in a message, their intention is to hurt you. So don't let them hurt you. And I know that's so much easier said than done, but you can take the power away from somebody in their words and just go, well, that's sad that you're sending me this message, but I hope you have a nice day. like you're clearly hurt and you need help, and somebody needs to help you. I am going to come to you, Leanne and Lauren, on this because I really want to hear your voices in this. But Erik, I know you had something brief that you wanted to say.
Yeah, I've never heard about this before. This is completely new to me, honestly. But it is an important, message. Apparently, it is a big problem. So I actually kind of changed my vote in the polls. I'm sorry. But yeah, if this is happening, it's not okay. I do want to point out that sometimes when people are being very aggressive about nonsensical things, it could be the fact that they are themselves doing very poorly. I'm not saying that it's an excuse to take it out, and it's obviously destructive, but I think as a receiver, it might help a bit to know that, it's not about you, it's more about them.
Definitely. It's all about perspective, isn't it? Absolutely. Leanne, I know you wanted to say something on this, and as yourself, it's kind of like a pillar of your community. Have you experienced this?
Oh God, horrendously. I think from my perspective, the racial abuse that I've received talking about issues within my community and setting up my project, Black Women Rising, using the word Black Women Rising, we're not saying we're against anybody else. We're just Black women rising through our cancer diagnoses, and there's nothing wrong with that. And the racial abuse I've received talking about this has been horrendous. So yeah, I totally relate. And it's not just people from outside, it's people within the cancer community as well, almost as if, our stories are not valid, where, I wouldn't be doing the work. As far as I'm concerned, I wish I went through cancer and went through cancer and forgot about cancer. Unfortunately for us, as everybody knows, the cancer journey never stops, regardless of what stage you're at. And I think I found that really, that hence why my work is here. And I've found that really difficult, actually, since starting this awareness work, how difficult people can be. But I think that Erik is right. I think you realize after a while that hurt people. And, when I get my messages from women that I've helped, or the project has really helped, I think that's what keeps me going. And that's what keeps me knowing that I'm doing a great job. Even if you just get that one message from someone in my community that says, do you know what, which I have got, I'm 22 years old and I've just been diagnosed with breast cancer and I don't know what to do. For me, that means that the work is worth it, and I've managed to turn it around like that. But yeah, there's times I've wanted to quit. Only last year, I was going to say, nope, this is not worth it. The abuse is not worth it. But, we live and learn, and we rise above it.
Yeah, I've having such a big platform and talking about the cancer experience as I do, it is natural that people are going to have something to say. 9 times out of 10, it's taught me a lot of things, because I've realized that what I was doing was I was saying things like, when you get cancer, you feel like this. When you get cancer, you feel like this. And actually, I'm talking about, I can't speak for everyone. So very early on, I put something on my Instagram, and my following is quite small. And I said, like, cancer patients often feel like this, and actually feel like, but you don't speak for me. And I got quite upset. It's like, oh my God, I've offended someone. But then it also made me adapt how I articulate things, and actually making sure that people know that this is my lived experience, that not everyone will have that same experience. But also there's been a lot of people that really struggle with being so open about something so traumatic and actually find it so triggering. And again, it's that hurt people, and they'll be like, this is too much, you shouldn't be so blasé about this, you shouldn't make fun out of this. And it's like, well, I'm just talking about it in my tone of voice. I'm just talking about it in a way that feels natural to me, to be able to handle the gravity of the situation I'm in. One thing that I did find hilarious though was, apparently, there's a website called Tattle in the UK, and it's basically a place where people who have only got bad things to say about people go or make a thread and say bad things about people. And one of my friends was written about on there, and it got the better of me, this curiosity, and I put my name in, and someone had written, and actually someone had written and complained, basically saying they followed me at the start of my cancer journey to see how it really was, but they just got fed up with the fact that now all I seem to do is be talking about, you know, oh, I've received this lovely thing, or I got to go to this lovely thing, and bearing in mind I was still in cancer treatment and been invited to a nice cancer safe massage. People just started to be a bit like, oh, she's getting this and that, and I just feel like, fair, because I feel I'm very fortunate that my platform has allowed me to have such privileges, and not everyone gets those. But sometimes I'm a bit like, just live and let people live. Do you know what I mean? We're all trying to get through this in our own way, and we're all struggling in our very own ways. And do you know what? For a lot of people, Instagram and social media and sharing what they're doing is a lifeline, because it makes them feel validated, it makes them feel seen, it makes them feel that they're not alone in their experience. And I think if that's what they need to do to get through this, then who's anyone else to judge?
Absolutely, preach. And it's really interesting what you say about like Instagram and Facebook. It's almost as if there's a social media, social networking app for the cancer community that's needed. And I wonder where that's going to come from. We'll have to wait and see. Sorry, cheeky plug, had to. Next one. So I've got thank you so much for sharing, Lauren. I think that's a really unique experience and perspective. And I think it's actually nice to not that you need to explain yourself at all, but it's good for you to speak your truth on that, because I know you've had to deal with that before. So thank you so much. I think last question for the panelists, but it would be great to get anybody else's experiences or thoughts on this as well, is for you, Leanne. Now, I know you're a huge advocate for your own community and that kind of discrepancy between the experiences of cancer between, let's say, a straight white male and a young Black woman. And I think it would be great to hear from your experiences what you think the current state of like going through cancer as a young Black woman is, or something to that effect.
Well, to be honest, I think we have to go back a little bit, and I think because of cultural taboos and myths within the Black and Asian community, actually, they're very similar. Cancer isn't seen as a disease that people of colour usually get. You know, it's not something that is widely reported, particularly living in the UK. There isn't much representation in the media and the cancer campaigns of people of colour with cancer. And when I got diagnosed as the 30-year-old Black woman who had run a business in the community for 15 years, so I was a voice of my community anyway, and that was for something different. For me, I kind of felt like I needed to address it. You know, I didn't find anybody to relate to, not online, not anywhere. So it's lonely and it's isolating, and there isn't many people telling their stories. People are too afraid. In terms of the communities themselves, some of the things that I think you guys should know is there's some really unhelpful myths, you know, within our communities. For example, people being told if you take chemo, you'll die. You know, stuff like something that I was told by, you know, someone in my community: don't take off your breasts because God wouldn't want you to take off your breasts. You know, there's other things being told to people, you know, whilst going through treatment. This was something that came back to me when I was blogging online. A woman messaged me and she said she had been told not to tell anybody in her family, because if she tells anybody in her family, you know, people you know, will say that you know, you've caught it from somewhere, or people will say that you've been cursed. You know, there was a you know, many people said that people were told that the cancer was a curse for things they've done in the past. So these really unhelpful things were being told. Oh, you know, I know in, you know, someone from the Asian community, she told me, it was a very good friend of ours, Simon Thompson, who is huge friend to me and Lauren, who I did a lot of campaigning work with. She, you know, spoke about when she was told to put, you know, fruit and dried flowers underneath her pillow for 30 days, and then her cancer would be cured. Now, these things are funny, but, you know, these things are what are being told to people on a regular basis. And what that's doing is it's making the journey of cancer that's already difficult 10 times worse. Because what these people are doing is they're experiencing extreme isolation from their families, feeling that they cannot talk to people within their families, hiding their diagnoses, but most of all, not even helping themselves. And when it comes to life-saving treatment, they're turning around and refusing it. And so I remember when I was nearing the end of my cancer journey, my oncologist, who was a white lady, she turned around and she said, "Leanne, listen, you're going to beat this, but I'm going to need you to do something. I need you to go back to your community and tell them about these drugs and tell them that you're okay. Because I keep getting young girls like you coming in and refusing treatment because they believe that their God is going to cure them." And she had heard about some of these myths and taboos. And for me, that's where my journey really, really began. That, you know, these things are unhelpful. People need to know that these things are being said. We need to raise awareness in our communities because cancer does exist. And most of all, help and support those people who already have been diagnosed with cancer or are surviving cancer.
I can also, sorry, but I can also pitch in on this because my story is really closely related to religion. It's not necessarily it has affected me during my treatment, but I've experienced like a lot of funny stories during my time off treatment or during treatment, a lot from rumors going around in my small village that I've been hit by something and I've had cancer, or it's all kind of funny stories coming up like that. But the most interesting, let's say, and most shocking reveal for me was that in terms of fertility preservation, I was instructed by my physician, sorry, Chemo Brain, by my physician to preserve my sperm, and I was willing to do it before my surgery. But my parents wanted to ask the advice of a local priest. And because of the advice of the local priest and seeing as masturbation as a sin in the Orthodox community, I basically didn't do it because I was very religious at the time. And I only found out years later, like 3 or 4 years later, that being 16, I would have had a word to say in regards to my own fertility, and I would have had the ability to choose whether to freeze my own sperm or not. And it still haunts me to this day because it's something that can happen, and religion can easily sway the minds of very large communities, and it can create such a massive misinformation wave that just carries on from generation to generation. And it's basically our duties to just come forward and speak up, because it's something that we have to battle it as a community.
Yes, exactly. And I think you're so right about that. Like, it's up to us to talk about these things. And yes, I have on one hand received so much racial abuse talking about this, but on the other hand, within my own communities, I've had a lot of resistance as well. Who, you know, I got an email last week from somebody, you know, a very angry man that had, you know, decided to tell me that what I was doing was wrong, and, you know, why am I advising people to do this and to do that? So again, we're gonna get resistance, but I suppose that's what we're here for. We're all change makers trying to make change within our various communities, and I think we're gonna get resistance, and we're gonna get people sort of trying to throw the woodworks in there. But these things are unhelpful, and people are, you know what I always used to say, and it's still relevant, people are dying because of these things. You know, this is what the result of talking like this and having these ridiculous myths and taboos passing through generations. People are not going to get checked. People are scared to take the drugs. They're scared to even go to the hospitals. They're scared of talking about stuff. And it results in that, you know, the ultimate thing that we all fear from all the chats and everything I can see here. That's the one ultimate thing people are fearing is death. And that's what's happening. And, you know, I suppose that's why we're here, and that's why we do what we do, you know.
Absolutely. And I think it's fueling that level of discrimination too. I mean, in my work, I'm very passionate about advocating for good healthcare for the LGBT plus community. And I know that's relevant across Europe as well because of these cultural taboos. In the UK, which is seen as a relatively progressive country, what we're seeing is 1 in 7 members of that community are avoiding healthcare altogether because they're afraid of discrimination. The health outcome of that community is abysmal, and it's my community, and it's really upsetting and it's really sad. And one experience which kind of made me think, because when I was first diagnosed, I didn't really get into LGBT activism. I didn't want to be a cliche, but like, I'm a gay man, so I have to be involved. That was my view. It was a very distorted worldview, but it was my view. When I became a member of the NHS Youth Forum, and I was able to do some incredible opportunities in front of policymakers, the NHS, and this one experience really changed my perspective on being a voice for people, because I am very aware that I also have a privilege of being able to speak out in certain situations. We're in Parliament, and I was just there listening to experiences, and we were listening to 3 young people, early 20s, who'd been diagnosed with cancer. One young man had come from the Asian community, come from Birmingham, had been diagnosed with cancer and had been closeted. He'd be a closeted young gay man for about 3 years, terrified of telling his family, and was diagnosed with cancer and went into treatment, had to have a stem cell transplant. So he was in hospital and was finally able to have friends and family visit him. But inspired by the community online and people who were voicing, be who you are, do this. And he was just like, I'm going through chemo. I really can't be bothered pretending to be something I'm not. So he finally opened up about who he was, told his family. They disowned him. He went through his cancer treatment in hospital on his own. His sister only visited once and basically just said, yeah, mum and dad aren't coming back. And then this is where the healthcare thing comes into it. In the UK, destroyed going through treatment, told a nurse, oh, they've done this. And she said to him, oh, well, let's just deal with the cancer first and then we'll get to that. We'll deal with the cancer first and then deal with that as if it's a problem. And these things exist all over the place. And like you've said, Leanne, like you've said, Lauren, like you said, Emmy, like you said, Andrea, like Youth Cancer Europe has said, and so many other organizations, visibility is important. And that's why we do what we do. Erica, you put your hand up earlier, and I would love to hear from you if you have a contribution. And then after Erik, we're going to come to a Q&A, because I'm just looked at the time. I was like, gosh, that time has travels fast when you're with great company. So we'll hear from you, Erik, and then we'll come to the Q&A. And if anybody else has any questions, please put it in the Q&A.
Yeah, thank you. So, I mean, first I have to say that story is messed up. It's just beyond. I'm shocked to hear that. I've heard things like that before, but to hear it like this, it's crazy. It's just absolutely unacceptable, and it definitely needs to change. You know, speaking out. I speak out about depression, and speaking out about the gay rights. I mean, it is equally as important, because I mean, living as a gay person like that is going to, you know, create mental health issues. So it's just, I don't know what to say other than, you know, it's messed up. I'm really sorry to hear about it. But I was thinking mainly about the conversation earlier about the misinformation being spread about cancer. I've heard things like people die because they take treatment. More people die from treatment than die from the cancer, and it's like many misconceptions, and it is costing lives, as Leanne said. And I usually remind remind of Steve Jobs, just like an example of someone who went different routes and changed too late. He tried alternative medicine, but it didn't work, and then he was too late. So it's important, and it's usually the most vulnerable as well. Like if you can't afford chemotherapy treatment, like one bag of the liquids that they have, 5,000 euros, maybe more, I don't know, then being offered an alternative treatment that they can actually afford, it's gonna look tempting, I think. And yeah, I mean people die from it, right? It's important to just emphasize that.
Definitely.
Facts, yeah.
Definitely, but I think it comes down to, and then we'll come to the Q&A, but I just want to come back on that. And I think it's trust, right? And it comes down to trust, and that I'm willing to trust people who have gone to med school for 8 years, who have researched, who've become professors, who have done this, who have no reason to tell you anything other than the truth. And people who care for you, they work in care. It's a systemic problem, by the way. It's not a personal problem for some people, only for some people. And I put my trust in healthcare professionals. And I know that when I was diagnosed with chronic myeloid leukemia 10 years ago, 20 years now, at the time, it would 10 years ago, I would have had to go through an immensely rigorous treatment that could have resulted in me dying. I'm a 2-time survivor of cancer, and I'm here. That's because of technology in medicine and science. So no one can tell me any other thing. That if people say that they're pumping poison into, well, yeah, they are pumping poison into me, it's chemo, but I'm still here. So that's my 2 cents on it. But I think I put my trust in people who I think have my best interests at heart. So we have 8 questions in the Q&A, and to make this a little bit quicker, but I want to make sure that we get to some good ones. If the panelists could go through and kind of pick out something that they would like to do, but I'm going to start with the first one and just see who wants to take it up. But whilst somebody's answering, if the panelists could just go through and say, "Oh, I really like that. I want to answer that question," because we'll try and get through as many as we can. So the first one, who is anonymous, sadly, but it's 7 votes. So about fertility. So if you're all happy to answer this, or somebody wants to pick it up. So I've had a problem with the thought of having children, whether I can justify it for fear of reoccurrence, although I have always wanted to have children. Do you feel the same way? Great question.
Oh my God, yes. I saw that question and I was like, oh my God, yeah. Do you know, literally, I had to take a break from all my campaigning in the last 2 months. Lauren and Brad, you know this a lot, because I felt like I wasn't practicing what I was preaching to everybody about looking after themselves and everything. And that firstly, the thought of recurrence, it just, for me, is something that comes and goes in waves, but it's still there with me every day, And then the thought of having children, I tell you, it was 2 things: the thought of buying a house, which I'm trying to do, and the thought of having children. I was like thinking, no lie, I was, up until probably the beginning of this month, I was like, I can't do it. I can't have children. I can't get a mortgage. I can't buy a house. What's the point? I'll leave everybody in debt. I won't have, I'll be selfish. I'll be a selfish mother. And no lie, it was waking me out of my bed in sweats. Like, that's nightmares. But then now I'm okay again. And I think the thing is, and I think everyone has to feel how they want to feel. One thing that I'm back to that kind of sanity mode, and I'm back into I'm okay with it, is that we're going to go through the motions. That's why I always say to people, just because somebody's been given an all clear diagnosis, it does not mean the cancer journey has ended. No, this is going to be with us for life. The worry of recurrence, it's very rare I meat anybody that tells me they don't worry about their cancer coming back. I'll be honest, I don't think I've met one, apart from maybe my mother, who's very, hard-headed. Sometimes, she has a different view on it. But most people I talk to have that fear of cancer returning, and it comes with so much other things that affect their life. Every decision, I can't do this, I can't go on holiday, I can't do this. And it's just understanding that we're going to have our ups and downs. But what really helped me was having a therapist that specializes in trauma. So I actually made sure I invested in it. And this is something that comes out of my monthly wage. And it is expensive because unfortunately with our NHS services, these things are not free. But I had to get somebody who specialized in cancer trauma. That's what I made sure I done. And I talk to her every week, and that really, really helps me. But just understanding that there's going to be ups and downs, and I've had to be really kind to myself to understand, because I got to the point where I was like, oh my God, there's something wrong with me. I can't get over this. I'll never get over this. But it's just understanding that there will be ups and downs. Where am I at the moment? I'm okay. I've actually now convinced myself that my cancer isn't coming back, and I'm going to be fine, and I'm going to be a mother, and I'm going to be a great mother. But I'm also very aware that this might change. But I'm being kind to myself, keeping my journals, monitoring actually when I feel like this as well, so that I can try and find like a pattern of when this happens. Is it a particular time of the month, time of the year? I've been really finding that really, really helps. So yeah, I totally relate to that. And when I saw that question, it gave me goosebumps, because I was like, this is the problem I've been having this month,
Definitely.
It is.
Thank you so much for answering that. You are going to be a great mother. You already are a mother to so many people anyway.
Thank you.
I think I would love to hear from other people on that particular question as well, but I kind of want to fuse it with something, because I think there's something definitely in that. And you touched on it in there, Leanne, about the longevity. So James has asked, while quite a few of us are far from their cancer treatment, do you think that cancer is something that is always going to affect you, and something that you will always talk about and continue to grow and support and voice? Or do you feel that the further you get away from it, like the less time, the less you want to speak about it? So let's put those two ones together if anybody wants to go next. We'll do Lauren.
Yeah.
Lauren.
That really resonates with me at the moment, because that's the kind of phase that I find myself in more and more. I'm 4 years since diagnosis, 3 years since active treatment, and I feel like it's always going to be something that I refer to in here, because it has been such a life-changing thing that has happened. Like, I genuinely feel like I would not be I know I'm not the person I am now, because I'm the person I am now because of what's happened to me. So there's no way that I would be able to not ever think about it. But what I do is I catch myself in the reasons why I'm raising it. And I've actually had to have a word with myself about things, about where I want to use my experience to advise someone or to raise awareness, to actually use it as a thing. Go, well, actually, when I use it now in this pandemic, everyone's talking about a new normal, and I'm like, yo, if you want to talk about new normal, just speak to the cancer community, because you're all about to go through what we've already gone through, But I do think it's really important to sit and think about why you're still talking about it. And I think a lot of the time it's because it still defines you. I've actually, when I do any work now, when someone intros me as a cancer survivor, I ask them to take it out, because unless it's relevant, why am I a breast cancer survivor? I don't have cancer anymore. Why is that the word that comes into talking about me, if it's not to do with the work in cancer that I do? I often think about it is, are you looking for validation? We all know that when you get sick, you become a celebrity in your life. Everyone wants to talk to you. Everyone wants to have a word. And I think a lot of people, I did for a while, really struggled to step away from that, because it's become who you are, and it gives people a reason to want to talk to you. And it's like, but actually that's not healthy. And sometimes you need to really realize that a lot of what you're doing when you're talking about it is to feel validated and seen. And you are more than enough, and you are way more valuable than, like, give yourself credit. You don't need to use your cancer as a reason for people to listen to you. But I also think that where there's healing that needs to be done, I feel like since I've gone through therapy, since I do a lot around moon cycles and spirituality and loads of different things like that to help me really ground down into myself and to really understand myself better. The more I know myself and the more I know my reasons, and when things come up, I can identify when it's cancer, when it's not. And if it is something that needs dealing with, I then have the tools to go and deal with it. I find that if something keeps coming up for me, it's because I need to work through it. And then the minute I work through it, it tends to go on the back burner. I don't know if that is helpful at all, but I definitely feel like it will always be part of the tapestry of who you are, but I don't think it's going to be the first word you think of every morning when you wake up, or the first sentence. And I just think catch yourself when you go to relate to life experiences and realize that that's not the only life experience you've had, and it doesn't always need to be your topic of conversation. And then you can soon start to detach yourself from it will always be part of your tapestry, but it doesn't define who you are.
Completely agree with that. Andrea, we're going to come to you with one of the questions, but I think, Erik, you just wanted to tap in on this quick.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment. First of all, I agree with you, Lauren. You know, we all had the experiences, and as you say, it becomes a part of us. It doesn't have to define us. But it was the thing we were speaking of earlier, the about the having children and, you know, fearing a relapse, or to me, I'm not afraid so much of a relapse. I'm mainly afraid of, you know, getting to a position where I actually feel, you know, well, just to crash like I have done so many times, and you know, fall down into this pit. You know, that's my issue with it. It's not about dying. It's not about getting the cancer back or something like that. It's just not knowing if I will just suddenly completely crash and not be able to take care of them because of that. Yeah.
Absolutely. So we'll do 2 more questions and then we'll have to wrap up. Sorry, these questions are wonderful, but unfortunately we're running out of time, and I want to try and get as many valuable contributions as possible. So one question that we had, Andrea, which was the one? So I'm just trying to find it.
It's about living with the thought of the cancer coming back.
So if you'd like to answer.
So, when I was diagnosed, I was given a 30% chance of surviving. And then I've been told that I'm going to have to get oncology appointments every year because of the nature of the type of cancer that I had. Ewing sarcoma is a really, really bad bastard. Let's call it like that. So of course there's always the fear of it coming back, but in my case, more than that, it's the fear of making plans in a way, you know. So for me, thankfully, I've been cancer free since 2008, which it feels ages away, but I've been going through surgeries almost every 2 years. And I've had to miss opportunities such as going to an Erasmus twice. I've had to not go on trips with my friends. I've had to just stay at home with my parents until I was like quite old in a way, because I could not afford to live on my own because I was how I was physically. So for me, when someone, I was struck by this because when someone asked me like, what's your 5-year plan? I was just like, my what now? Sorry. What's that? And they were like, oh, but I have my plans and I know what I'm going to do. And I'm like, no, I've somehow, as a coping mechanism for me, was like no making plans. And even now, with the year that I'm facing, like making plans for me seems like a no, because I know I've been disappointed so many times and I've been through so many like crash and burn. I'm not going to be able to do this. I'm going to miss on this, I'm going to miss on that, but honestly, at some point I think you make peace with not with yourself, but with the situation, and you make plans and put them on post-its in a way, so you may not be able to do it now, but they're there and they're like on your vision, and it's like a case of just trying to go one day at a time. You know, at some point a few years ago, I was going 3 times to the doctors, 3 times a week for several months, and I didn't even know was it going to stop, or I was told that I would have to be on a cast for, was it like 3 months, and I ended up being on a cast for 18 months. So all of these situations are, for me, have put time into perspective. And yeah, the fear of cancer coming back is there, but you know, it comes and goes, as Leanne has said, and very wisely has said. And yeah, I mean, it's just take it one day at a time, you know. With that, and with where you guys were discussing before, sorry if this is too long, by the way, but I do clearly remember when I was in uni, I spoke to a friend and I said, I don't want to have to do anything with cancer, because I've been dealing with cancer and the collateral effects and the side effects for so long that at some point I was just like, I need a break. And I took, I think it was like a couple of years to myself, and I wasn't working with anyone, I wasn't collaborating with anyone, and I was just me with my silly 23-year-old problems and going to uni and blah, blah, blah. And then at some point I decided that the best thing for me, in a way, it was to try and help others, because what I've been through, at least I'm here. And if I can offer coping mechanisms, and I can offer like my hand or any advice, or even just the fact that I'm alive is going to help people, then go for it. You know, I've been working with the YC for such a long time, and Katie is going to be able to corroborate that every time that they ask me to be on camera, I run in the opposite direction. I don't want to have anything to do with interviews and with anything, but you know, helping is also good. So just find your little niche, even if it's just posting a silly quote online every single day. Someone will appreciate it.
Thank you so much for sharing, Andrea. That's so important to be open and honest about that. And I mean, I'm so grateful to you all for being so open and honest. We need to do more of this, right? I think we need to do much more of this because I'm just really savoring it, this open and honesty. We're going to finish on a question, and then we'll start to wrap up because it's getting late now. I mean, I could do this all evening, I wish. What would be really great is to hear from every one of you, and let's keep it short and snappy. Any recommendations on inspirational, interesting books or movies? But I think I'm going to edit that, if you don't mind, and say interesting books, movies, or any other resources. Like, what gives you inspiration? What do you find interesting to help you get through things? Lauren, let's pick on you, shall we?
I was literally just thinking, and I'll be honest, like for me, I'm really into like moon cycles. I'm into really tuning into the cyclicality of the human body and our emotions. And I will always lean to, like, for example, tonight is a new moon, a full moon, sorry, in Leo. I know it's all about the heart and being open and being seen for truly who you are. So I know tonight I'm going to go and do some work, light a few candles, really tune into what's coming up for me at the moment. And I use that as a guide. Like it's those things that I find resonate with me more than anything. Like it's actually within me. I just need to be quiet enough to hear it. I don't know if that's a good enough answer, but I just find it really comforting because it just feels really natural to me to do.
There are no right or wrong answers. And if that works for you, then that works for you. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else like to go? Otherwise, I'm going to pick on you.
I'm gonna take a stab. Okay, good. For me, what had worked and is still working even during treatment and after treatment is reading a lot of comic books, particularly mangas, which is the Japanese version. And there's this one that I always recommend to people if you ever have the time and patience to read it. It's called Vagabond, and it's about the story of a famous samurai in Japan. And it's a story about life, how an orphan tries to become most powerful swordsman in the world, but he then faces thoughts about whether it's right or wrong to fight or kill people, whether what's the meaning of life in the end, and how he comes full stop to finding inner peace, basically. And it's a very beautifully told story that is actually touching. Every time I go through it, it's like new details come and pop up, and I resonate with it differently every time I read it.
I'm going to quickly jump in, Bradley, if I may, just to say that don't watch cancer movies. I am outraged by them and the portrayal of the so sad story of that cancer patient that is either A, going to die miserably, or B, find the love of their life and then going to die miserably. So it's just it's not worth it. Just go and find some comedy on Netflix and just have a laugh, but don't waste your time, because there's this particular movie in Spain that it put me on a level of rage that I've never been to, because it tackled the leukemia diagnosis of a girl by, instead of doing treatment, going through the religious way and sanctifying her. So they basically let her die. And I remember watching this movie on a summer night, and I called my dad. He was working, and I started like screaming at him, and he was like, what's wrong? What's going on? You lost your mind? He was like, I've just watched this and it's absolute filth. You know, how they could leave this happen to her. So no, I'm just not going to enrage, because, you know, you need to keep calm. But no cancer movies, not sad short stories, please. Thank you very much.
That's fine. And I imagine what you do for inspiration is drawing, no? And expressing yourself creatively. I'm going to go out on
Yeah.
And you have a natural talent for it. But before we come to Erik and finish with Leanne on this question, I want to say just quickly that I know I said, how do you find inspiration? And I know people really don't like sometimes the inspiration type, but I just thought I'd go with it anyway. Why not? I mean, I don't know if anybody else agrees, but you know, when you get those messages come through, it's like, oh, you're such an inspiration. It's like, thanks. I'm just going through cancer like anybody else. Erik, what do you find? Where do you find your inspiration or interest? What motivates you?
I don't know if it's the right word to say motivates me, but there's when you're speaking about, you know, movies and media and things that it's more helpful, I would say, to help cope with the current situation. So I'm watching specifically comedy shows about the news. There's Trevor Noah, for instance, so you can actually stay updated with what's happening, but not having to read the news every day. It's very important if you're suffering from depression to be careful and not, you know, dive too deep into it, because it can spiral out of control so quickly. So not inspirational, but a tip, I guess, in coping.
Thank you.
Life. Yes.
Thank you. Leanne.
Sorry. I find giving gratitude like on a daily basis really helpful. And I started my gratitude journey probably about 4 years ago, when I was going through quite bad depression just before cancer. And there's a book that really started me off, and it's called The Magic. And it's by the lady that wrote that book, The Secret. And The Secret is okay. It's a really good book, but The Magic is practical. So I like things that I've got like practical tasks in. And that book really changed my life, actually. It took me a long time to actually pick it up, to do it, to actually start to read it. But it really, really changed my life. And it just kind of gets you to focus on some things to be thankful for. And I really have found that something so centering, like to start my day, just writing 10 things that I'm really, really thankful for. I just find that it just helps me, even if I'm going through like a really bad day, finding those 10 things. You know, we've all got more than 10 things to be thankful for, you know, and it's it's putting things into perspective. An example could be, you know, I remember one of the things I wrote when I was going through chemo. Okay, you know, I may have lost all my hair, I may feel fat, and I may feel ugly or whatever, but I'm thankful for another day. You know, something as simple as that. I'm thankful for, you know, access to a warm bed, heating, water. These are all the very basic necessities that so many people don't have. Again, for me, it was giving thanks for the chemo drugs, because I know that they're not always widely acceptable everywhere. So it's just finding those little small things to be thankful for, and they really centered my day. And that's just something that I just live my life by now. Oh, someone's asked me to repeat the book, but it's called The Magic. I'll write it in the blurb. And I think it's really cheap on Amazon at the moment. So yeah, because I always buy it for everyone for their birthdays and stuff. So yeah.
Oh, well, I know I'll be getting for my birthday this year then. Fantastic. Well, I think we're going to end there. Thank you so much for everyone who put your questions in the Q&A. I'm really sorry if we didn't get to yours. But I just wanted to say thank you. I know I keep saying it, but it really means a lot. I'm so glad and grateful that I've been able to facilitate this and meet you all and speak to you all. And the chat, I've kept checking in every now, just the conversation there is just, it's so heartwarming. So I just wanted to say thank you to all of you for joining and coming together and sharing and being open and honest. And I have a feeling that this isn't going to be the last one of these that we do. And hopefully next time when we get to do one of these, it will be in person somewhere sunny, hopefully, Katie. I just want to hand over to Sarunas, who is the chairman of YC, who's going to close for us. And then we'll speak to you next time. So Sarunas.
Hello, guys. So yes, this is that mysterious guy who was spamming you in the chat and pulling up poll links, and have all of these guys behind me all the time, you see. So yes, thank you. We are really impressed with the turnaround. We had nearly 100 participants currently online. We see that there are 74 of you. And I'm really thanking you for being so active. You know, the worst thing, it is like, imagine us being here, having a panelist, and everyone is just going offline and saying, okay, you guys just, you know, speak among yourselves. But no, you were engaging, you were commenting, you were asking questions, and all of that is great. So now more to something that if you are here until then, so you should be the ones being able to drive us forward, right? So we want to do this more. We want to do it once a month, and not always in a very serious fashion. It feels like today we actually hit high and hit strong. You see, it was like some of the topics were sensitive, some were tough, but we coped them like heroes. I mean, the panelists, they're the powerhouses in here. And I mean, really thanking you for all the energy there. So look, give us actually ideas. What are the topics you want to see us doing webinars? And if you maybe want to be a panelist, you know, there's no difference between, you know, we would love to have all of you here speaking, but, you know, it's like we still need to do it somehow in an orderly manner. That's why we need British people to, you see, put us in order. So thank you really, guys, and Brad, that was a wonderful moderation. And of course, the panelists, you were superb. So you know what? We had this live video going on Facebook, and you can see that in Youth Cancer Europe Facebook. So why don't you put some comments in there, what topic you would want us to go for the next webinar? And if maybe you want to share something on it, so we will start pulling things together. It doesn't have to be something tough. I mean, we can speak about, I know, the disparities, or we can speak about cannabis. We see now that's a very trendy topic, in cannabis and cancer, and you know, all of this. The recording will be available, so we will be sharing it together with our MailChimp. So if you've registered and you've agreed that we can reach out to you, so you will see us that way. You will be able to see that on Facebook. For the questions we were not able to answer, once that recording is available, we'll do our best to reply that there in writing. So, and I mean, it's like really good questions, and we can spend one more hour on it, but it's getting dark, it's getting late, and we don't want you to be exhausted with us for the first time. But there's also a more lighter version of this coming up. You know what we will be doing? We'll be hosting a quiz nights, like a pub quizzes, if you may, in this virtual way that we are still struggling with the lockdown. So, you know, if you want and are interested in an informal chats, not tackling, and the quizzes are not about cancer. It's not about checking if you know your medicine. It is about something that we everyday citizens are dealing with our life, and just some casual knowledge. Maybe Emmy doing his manga quizzes as well. So look up to that, and we really want you to feel a part of our virtual community and to get along, and that we can know each other better. We were really happy to see 34 countries, 9 countries outside of Europe. That's very good to build on that global reach. You know, you may get one commitment from me today. From the moment that we'll be able to physically meet again, YCE wants to host a global summit on mental health, so that we would have not just the one day, but like 3 days, you know, of events getting together, and the social programs for the cancer survivors, not just from Europe, but from all the continents. So of course, that's still in the big plans in the future. We don't know how the world will look like a year from now, but it will be better, I think. And it will be better because all of us are here as a community. We are speaking for each other, feeling for each other, standing behind each other. And I really want to thank you for being to us till the end. And again, if we may give a round of applause, you know, I can hear only myself probably, but I hope you're doing this as well by your computers, to the panelists, and of course to the Bradley for a wonderful moderation. So thank you, and Bradley, back to you.
Thank you so much, everybody. Well, I think let's take that. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you for coming, and we will see you all very shortly. Have a lovely evening. Take care, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.